has been trying to streamline what we used to think was a pretty bloated operating system, but this year they have taken some really big strides in order to create this, a new version of the LG UI that is actually probably the leanest that we have ever seen. The first thing we're going to start out with before we even get into the elements of the home screens and any of the menus underneath is the fact that we have the always on display. Now the first thing I'll show you there is that if you go into the settings and you head down to the display, you'll see the always on display option right here. And you can change it up so that it shows only that area with the time and some of the icons for your notifications, or you can actually have it show a signature. Now, the thing about the signature, however, is that it only takes up so much, and it kind of doesn't really have too many characters on there, so even the default signature has a couple of letters grayed out, and it doesn't even show up in the actual area right there. So we probably will tend to leave it at the time so that we can always see that, and ultimately it is a time display, as you can see very lightly in the sunlight right here, and it is always going to be on. This IPS display does have this area always on when you have the phone on lock, and it's always going to show, so you'll have an easy access to seeing the time. Of course, you can turn off the always on display if it's not something that you want to have on every time you lock the phone. But now we can talk about the rest of the interface and the operating system as we unlock the device. And of course, you still have access and the ability to use the knock on feature to double tap the display and turn on the display and unlock the device from there. And of course, you always have the knock code as well, which we have seen in previous versions of the LG G line already. Going through the menus real quick, we do have all of the different settings right here. Everything from the smart cleaning, which is still available, so that you can see what it is that you can remove from the device if things are starting to get a little bit too saturated. And we already showed you the always on display. But now we can take a look at the actual interface, and heading over to the home screens, the first thing you guys are probably going to notice, and I can hear some of you getting your pitchforks out already, is that there's no app drawer. That's right, LG is taking a pretty bold stance this year with the G5 in stating that they wanted to create the simplest type of interface and make it as intuitive as possible, so there is no app drawer here that you need to fiddle with, including the fact that when you're holding an icon, you don't need to have the uninstall or remove options on the top, which they felt was a little bit convoluted. But you are going to have to contend with the fact that you put all of your icons on the home screens, and you're going to have to create folders, as you can see right here, that will house all of your different applications so you can actually categorize them and clean up the interface. Of course, we understand that you would be able to put a custom launcher on here, and that is, of course, the power of Android, but no, a app drawer will not be available on here anymore. But actually, it doesn't just stop at the app drawer. There are plenty of features from previous LG phones that actually aren't making it onto the G5. If I bring down the notification drop-down, you'll notice here that there are no Q-Slide applications. And if you don't remember, Q-Slide were those little applications that overlaid on top of your current workspace, so you had tools that were small enough to not take up the whole screen, but you were still able to get some multitasking done that way. If I head over to the extra features on here, they don't show up in this area, so no more Q-Slide applications on the G5. There's also a lack of dual window on here. Now, if we go into the recent app screen like we're seeing right here, we can pin certain applications so they aren't going to be cleared out, but even then, we don't have the dual window functionality for even better multitasking like that. So things are really getting much more simplistic on the LG G5, and if we go through the various options in the home screen, we're in home screen right now in the settings, we can turn on the smart bulletin, which I'm sure is familiar from the LG G4, where we have a number of these different applications that are available. But other than that, a lot of the things that may have been familiar from the LG G4 are not on here anymore.